And welcome everyone to a special episode of In the Library of Graphic Literature 300th edition! Jazz hands! And today we are showcasing this many books. This is a lot more than usual. Well, let's take a seat.
Yay! 300, yay! Jazz hands. Yeah, it's quite a stack, isn't it? I have to be careful not to knock it over. So now we'll do our we were thinking about big books and all that, but I figured we'll do that maybe 301 or 302, maybe Christmas time. Because Christmas time is time for big things.
Right, drum roll.
And gotta send out a thank you to my granddaughter Sophia, who was the one who harassed me and kept telling me, "Oh, you gotta have a YouTube show on comics and all that," and finally I did.
I get this from the Wiggles, by the way.
And this is close to, if not right on your 100th show, because you joined at 195, and this is number 300. Yay! So,
a round of applause.
So round of applause all around. Now this basically is a stack of my 25 favorite books from the library.
Is it now?
I think it is. I think it's 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and I got one hidden behind there, 19.
You're really able to narrow it down, right?
My 19 favorite books. This was, now of course there's some that I'll throw in and say will go in with that. But let's jump right in, and we'll start off with
Fantastic Four.
Yay! And volume 2, is it, or 3? Yeah, volume 2, and this contains like some of my favorite of the Fantastic Four. I became a huge fan of Jack Kirby. I don't have the Jack Kirby cover, unfortunately, for this one. But this contains, like the first appearance of Silver Surfer, Galactus, the Inhumans, let me see, who else? Frightful Four, all kinds of people. The Black Panther, first appearance of Black Panther.
You're definitely a fan of Jack Kirby by looking at everything in here.
Kirby. And this, of course, once I became a Kirby fanatic, I realized that this was some of his prime comics, mainly later on in this particular run, but especially when the Inhumans joined on the scene, let alone Galactus. Oh, check out that. He even had the great photo montages. I had a beautiful copy of this one. Look at that.
Comic book form?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I had just about everything that's in this book I had in real comic book form. So this, an amazing run, including look at that. Jack was ahead of his time. This before, even Photoshop or anything came along and helped people do this. And of course, first appearance of the Black Panther, who appears like almost as a villainesque type of guy, but turns out to be just, trying to give the Fantastic Four a hard time, like happens so many times. Oh, and Claw, who became a big part of the whole Black Panther mythos and all that. And, I didn't start out, I can remember as a kid, I didn't like Kirby at first because I thought he was too blocky. I didn't quite get him. And it was only as I got older that I was like, oh my God, this guy's a bloody genius. And I'm just gonna move in, and it just kept on going from there. There's a couple of Kirby things in among here, so we'll talk about them as we go along. Now this I put this one in because this is The Creeper by Steve Ditko. Ditko was one of the first artists that I was able to recognize in terms of like looking at a comic and saying, "Oh, that's Steve Ditko guy." Mainly because of his hands. His hands were very distinctive. And he, of course, is best known as the co-creator of Spider-Man and creator of Doctor Strange. And when he left Marvel in the 60s, because he got pissed off with Stan Lee, he went with Carlton, but he also started doing work for DC Comics. And he did this series, and I actually bought this as a kid. And I can remember reading it and thinking, wow, this creeper character is so cool. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. The yellow guy with green and black underwear and a rug on his back. And he just seemed like such a bizarre character. And of course he was.
They're a bizarre character, so I can see the resemblance.
But I absolutely love this. And then they gave him his own title.
The resemblance is uncanny.
Resemblance is uncanny. Yeah. And with Ditko too, like someone once said that when you're looking at a Ditko comic, everyone in the comic, even the people in the background, look like they're losing their minds, right? There's that, he got that artistic tension or whatever going on. But I loved the Creeper, and even and when this book came out, I had to have this, of course. And but yeah, always loved the Creeper. Thought he was the bee's knees.
Next up, of course, it has to include Conan the Barbarian.
No. And this one I included mainly for one of the comics in it, and I actually use this in my not only my comic book course, but in my drawing course too. Is I show them the cover, this cover, and then I show them the cover of issue 24, and like this I use as an example, and this to all you young artists out there is the only way you can make yourself better and better is to keep drawing. So this is number 1 cover, and there's number 24 over here. I mean, look at the difference. Same person.
I like this drawing.
Yeah.
That's a nice one.
And I mean, this is possibly one of the best drawn comic book stories I've ever read. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful. It was his last.
You show them what I was talking about.
Oh yeah, it was his last. And I'll first show him. There's the cover of Conan 1, and the same guy. 3 years later, this is Conan number 24, the legendary Conan 24.
And the leggy lady.
The Song of Red Sonja. I mean, this is, and the first time I seen this was in an oversized comic, and it was just like, my God, this is one of the most beautifully illustrated comics I'd ever seen in my life.
She's one of your favorite characters, isn't she?
Like she's right up there, but it's mainly this artist is he's one of my favorite. I mean, look, I love that. I mean, the detail, everything. It's just beautifully drawn, and he continues, and he's still alive to this day. Barry Windsor Smith continues to be one of my favorite comic book artists, and someone who influenced me mightily smightily as a young artist growing up.
Yes, it's definitely one of the better ones out there.
Mm-hmm. Now, next up is this. These are a couple of books now. I got 3 in a row by Jim Starlin, the Starman, the Mr. Cosmic, shall we call him? And I'll start with the earliest one. He came on and he's the creator of Thanos, of course, most famously, and who's it? Gamora and Drax. So he created a lot of cool superheroes, but he came along and he took over Captain Marvel. He did not create Captain Marvel, but he took over Captain Marvel, which was a good comic that I read, and I kind of liked Captain Marvel. And then this new guy, to me, comes on, Jim Starlin, and his comics were just absolutely amazing. And so I started reading them, great stories. And I mean, at first he was just doing the art, and then he more or less took over everything. He took over the writing and the plotting of it and all that. There's him with the Avengers and with Thanos.
You know, Wallace, I learned so much about you with these shows. I feel like the whole concept is just educating me, because I know nothing.
Well, this just it, and this is what I like about this is that it's to show people, you know, who, because if I can explain it, and you can like it, then everyone else out there who's listening in, who's just new into comics, will sort of get what I'm talking about, because I'm trying to explain it to someone who's almost brand new. And this particular issue
almost
here...
brand new. I am brand new.
You are brand new. This particular issue, number 33, was one of my all-time favorite comics. I must have reread this one 10 million times. There's a Thanos. And Thanos was kind of like the Infinity Gauntlet. He became a god in this because of something called the Cosmic Cube. And he fights Captain Marvel, my favorite hero. And... oh, there he is, and there's Drax, the green guy. That's there. Nice. And and he basically Captain Marvel realizes that Thanos is drawing his power from the cosmic cube, so he figures, okay,
is that your cube thing? Where is it?
no, but I do have a cosmic cube somewhere, and then this shows him as he cracks the cosmic cube and destroying it. Oh, and
Show them, not me.
There's one of the first appearances of Death. Not one of the first, one of the many appearances. And thus, so-called ended the life of Thanos. But of course he came back again and again and again and again and again.
The unkillable character.
Yeah. he comes back a year or so later in this series. Once again, Warlock, not a character that Sterling created, but a character he took over the comic. And he changed the character totally, of course. And so when he came off Captain Marvel, and I heard he was on this one, it was just like, oh,
That's a nice picture.
I got to have this, yeah. And in this one, it's Adam Warlock. He faces a character called the Magus, who is essentially him from the future.
Kind of looks like a Hindu god there in the back. Where is it?
Oh. Well, he's
got like 3 eyes and just like the cosmos in a way.
Yeah. Well, it's and he has like an afro, which is really strange, right? But it turns out that the Magus is Warlock from the future, and he gets changed into the Magus. So this whole series about him trying to do away with his future self. And the neat thing about this, this is it is at the very next issue here. You see the Comics Code Authority stamp up there. You'll notice that it doesn't say Comics Code Authority, it says Cosmic Code Authority. They got in and they changed the stamp before, and it went out printed like that.
Yeah.
They even left it in the, I like it in the collected version. This one again I love. This is Sterling. He actually inks himself mostly throughout this, throughout the entire series, and then he's taken over by this guy Steve Lehola, who's absolutely amazing. And this is where he discovers that he's he's the Magus in the future, and he has more or less.
That looks like your lettering style.
Oh yeah, well it's by this guy Tom Orskinchowski, who is to me one of the lettering gods. He lettered like a lot of X-Men in the day. I think he letters just about this entire series. Hola. There's the cover, and there's the Magus. He looks like him, only he's sort of purple and he has a afro.
Oh.
So they gave me they basically then he got his own comic, because this was appearing in the back of Strange Tales, or in Strange Tales, and then let's see, and of course then comes in Thanos makes his appearance here, and Gamora actually appears in this too, and then in the end he ends up, in this scene he arrives, finds himself in the future, and he kills himself. So it's like cosmic suicide. And then there's some wacky last episodes. It was really good. And then it comes back again in the Avengers. He comes back to life, and Thanos does too, and he takes on Thanos once again. And as a matter of fact, this has the gems in it, the Infinity Gems. But in the end...
Is that where the glove comes from?
No, the glove comes in the next, sort of, the next chapter there, later on. It came about 10 years later. That's when they... And the series actually is even called the Infinity Gauntlet. He gathers together all the Infinity Gems and he puts them onto the glove. And then he wreaks havoc.
See, I knew something.
Well, exactly. Yeah, well, it's... We can't talk about it so much without you. Well, I mean, you know Kirby, you know all the big names now, right? Now this, and then he continued on, and after that, he did a series called The Metamorphosis Odyssey, which started out as a black and white, gray-toned
That's cool.
comic and all that, and eventually turns color.
That's really good art.
Oh, it's an amazing.
Show them; they can see the far
It's an amazing series. It starts out black and white and gray, and actually one of the chapters and then eventually turns into color, and then and actually this is one of the chapters is then produced separately in another comic called The Price by Eclipse Comics. So it was one of the first times that a story jumped from one company to another one and then back to Marvel again. And then they had Dreadstar, which he became the main character, and then came the comic itself that lasted for many years. And I loved this series. Jim Starlin, I love you.
He's still alive.
Yes, he's still at it. Still looking good too. I mean, talk about to see someone. He's about 10 years older than me, I guess. He's in his 70s, I think it is, or.
Sure, you're not gay old?
And and he is still one good-looking man. So, but I mean, I was heavily influenced because he did some amazing stories. Loved his artwork.
No homo, right?
No. Anyway, continuing on here, we have Tomb of Dracula. Now, of course, this is one of my favorites mainly because the artist, this guy named Gene Colan, who did some amazing. I loved all of his work. He did. What was it? He did Daredevil. He did all kinds of stuff with Marvel throughout the 60s and all that. And this was his masterpiece, The Tomb of Dracula. This is where you first come across Blade. Blade first appears in this. But what I liked about him was that he could draw great fog, like when he'd show him turning into a bat. Mm-hmm. Just the sequence itself was really cool. Now this issue here was inked by Tom Palmer, and eventually Tom ended up inking him for most of it. There are a couple in this that were inked by other people, and it's just not that great. But when Palmer took over and started inking him, it just made it absolute genius. And there's some black and white in here too, because he did do some black and white issues. But Gene Colan, one of my all-time favorites. He's up there with Kirby and Jim Starlin. And on that note, we come across Howard the Duck, one of my other favorite, and one of my favorite writers, Steve Gerber. And it started out with, when he first creates it, he creates Howard with this, he created him with Val Mayrick, but it was just a couple of issues in an issue of Man-Thing. And then he returned in these solo short stories in the back of Giant-Sized Man-Thing. It was funny, at the time I didn't realize how weird that title really was, right? And but this guy Frank Brunner took over and was doing the art, and this was the two of them together that made Howard the star that he was. And this is the first issue of Howard the Duck. They of course had Spider-Man in it, absolutely amazing. And but then he left after a while, and they replaced him with Gene Colan, who at the time was doing Tomb of Dracula. So at the same time that he's doing Tomb of Dracula, he's doing this comic about a duck. And a lot of these were actually inked by Steve Laiola, who'd done the work with Starlin. But it it was strange. He really did do a really cool Howard the Duck. I think a lot of people, even my friend Jerry, who was a big fan of it, was surprised by his choice. But then we were surprised that it was just, after a while, we were like, geez, we really like this Gene Colan Howard the Duck. And he really became the man associated with him.
He really looks so much like Donald, though.
Oh, he does. And Steve Laiola, I can never pronounce his name. Sorry, Steve. But he inks a lot of this, and he's another person who inked this guy, Gene Colan, absolutely masterfully. But yeah, it was, he runs for president, but he loses in the end. Spoiler alert. But it's, and there's the kidney lady. Or is that the kidney lady? Oh, no. He fight, just and this is where he fights the son of Satan, or meets the son of Satan. He gets possessed temporarily by him, and in the end, I can't remember if it's in this issue, But he does meet with Kiss. He ends up meeting Kiss. They're portrayed as demons and all that. Great story anyway. And loved Howard the Duck. Loved Gene Colan. Like I say, I guess these are like, if I was on a desert island, these are all the 20-something books that I would want there with me.
You just write your own.
Yeah. Well, you'll see it now in a second. And the next one, of course, back to Kirby again, is this one, Thor. I liked Fantastic Four, but for some reason, I absolutely adored Thor. I thought it was, because I was into the mythology and, Norse and Greek myths and stuff like that. So this I really took to. And I mean, the way the gods were drawn and everything like that, they were really cool. Kirby, this man could do cool costumes. And I mean, every time he drew Odin had a whole different costume on. He looked completely different. This is his introduction of a character called the High Evolutionary. And these characters, it's just like Kirby could create some of the most amazing stuff and characters. He was an imaginative genius. Let's see if I can find a cool picture of. Oh, this is ILOGL, and I do believe this starts, or it leads into one of my favorite series, The Man Gog. But let me see if there is a cool. Oh yeah, I mean, look at these outfits. Mm-hmm. I mean, Kirby could do amazing characters and outfits. They used to, even as a kid, I'd just shake my head like, how the heck did he design this? How did he come up with this, right?
Should probably get to the next one. We're gonna run out of time here.
Oh, yes. So anyway, Kirby, Thor, for sure.
Now on to High Society.
Dun-dun-dun-dun. This is, of course, the second book in the Cerebus the Aardvark series, which I fell in love with during art school, and it was cool because it was like, it started out as a Conan parody, and quickly became.
Look at that picture.
Oh yeah, it is really cool. That's the Regency elf, and he, it started out, like I say, as a Conan parody, then it quickly became its own comic, right? And let's see. Oh, the Spectre. Of course, I always have to have the Spectre. I love the Spectre because of, especially the 70s series where he turns into this character, and every time he faces, like that, when he'd face the criminals and catch the criminals, they'd all die in very gruesome ways.
You're halfway through?
Yeah. And now these I've read before, but I'm rereading them again. But in the end, the villains, oh, and there he is there. The villains would always die in the most gruesome way possible. Like here, it's this wax museum where this guy's animating these mannequins, bring them to life. Now, I think in the end he like melted him or something like that, or yeah, he melts him like. So it was cool. The Spectre always won in the end, and if he got you, then he'd kill you in the most gruesome way possible. My favorite is still he kills the one character by, it's a gangster who has this toy duck as his what would you say? Ooh, yeah, I like that. As his I don't know what you call it, his totem or whatever, and he in the end he brings the toy duck to life, and it grows big and eats them. This, of course, this is Swamp Thing. Da, 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 da. I loved Swamp Thing and Bernie Wrightson especially. Myself and my friend Jerry, we absolutely we were just absolutely blown away by him. His artwork was absolutely amazing. Oh, and here's one page here. If I'm to show one page out of this whole one, it's this one, the werewolf. I mean, that's a werewolf. You can't werewolf better than that. Next up is Killraven, written by Don McGregor, the great Don McGregor. I could put in half a dozen of Don's works, but this one is always my favorite because of the artist on it with him, P. Craig Russell. who was an absolutely amazing artist. So as a kid reading this, it was just like, oh my God, the story is great and the art is just over the top.
Is it a unicorn?
Some sort of that.
There's a purple horse.
But I mean, the art throughout was absolutely amazing. Then it came back years later. They came back in a graphic novel, and it was just as amazing. There it is, beautifully drawn. This guy,
Show them.
This guy, of course, Craig Russell. He's done a lot of work with Gaiman over the years. This guy did the Graveyard Book. So one of my favorite artists, and I
thought I was your favorite artist.
Well, yeah, after you, I mean. Next up is Frank Miller, of course, another one of my favorite artists, and this one, possibly my favorite Batman story, Year One, which is basically like the origin story of Batman all over again. He comes in, and I'm Batman, and this really is the start of how he becomes Batman, and the artwork by Dave Mazzucchelli is off the scale. I'm serious, truly one of the best Batman stories of all time. I love this Batman. And this set actually has Batman, the recolored one, and the original coloring. I kind of like the original coloring. Then Miller, before that Miller did this series called Ronin. And my friend Ho Chi Anderson, he also loved this too. It was quite revolutionary. It was in some ways the first manga comic, because a lot of the drawing, a lot of the stylistic, well, it's about a samurai.
Did you ever do an interview with Ho Chi after?
No, I have to, you know.
If you're watching this, we want to do an interview.
And we will, Ho Chi, for sure. But this one, both of us absolutely love this one, and it was at the time. I can remember a lot of people didn't absolutely love it as much as I did, but it was just like it still holds together, if not even more today. This was one of the first comics. This one here, this was by a guy, Dave Cockrum. This is one of the first comics I bought when I was 13 years old. This one here, I bought up the street at Omar Martin, where what is there now?
The comic book form?
Yeah. So this one I bought in the drugstore, one block up. It's now, Stella Burry. That was a drugstore, and I bought this comic there, and while I was waiting for Dad one day, and I started buying more and more comics, and it just went nuts from there. I was also a huge fan of this guy here, Neil Adams, who just died a couple of years ago, and he was a really hyper-realistic artist, which back then was fairly new, and he could do it pretty quickly, right?
I don't know if I'd call it hyper-realistic.
Well, pretty realistic, like in these drawings here, sort of compared to some artists, right?
It's typical.
But
don't believe them.
Absolutely amazing. And last but not least, and I saved this. I figured, once again, it's Kirby again, but it's one of my favorite comic book series of all time. There's two books in this series, but I figured I'd take out the main one because it's my favorite. Is the fourth?
Darkseid?
Yeah, the Fourth World.
Or Darkseid?
Darkseid, yeah. I used to pronounce it Darkseid too, actually.
That's what it looks like. The
Yeah.
spelling.
And Jimmy Olsen. He did the best Jimmy Olsen ever done. And he created the New Gods there. I mean, I love the cover of the New Gods. Oh, there, that was the cover of it.
Show them.
I had this entire series. In comic book form, and I sold it to Jason and Jason was surprised that I